When you're looking for more and there's no place to go, it's a sequels only bonus show. It's not about sequels this time, you know, it's a sequels only bonus show. Doug and his pals, well, they know what to do, talking about movies without a part two. Looking for more and there's no place to go, it's a sequels only bonus show. Talking to stars with Doug did soul, it's a sequels only bonus show. Sequels only bonus show.
Hey there, Doug here. Hope you're doing well. Hope you're staying safe. I know Mondays suck, but we're here to help. And it's a bonus interview. So it's a little something special. It's sort of not a bonus interview because it's somebody from Jaws 2. And this is an interview that kind of like fell into my lap. I posted on Twitter at Sequels Only the interview that I did with production designer Joe Alves from Jaws 1 and 2. And he directed 3. So somebody reached out. It was a guy named Billy Van Zandt. I'm like, I know that name. So I looked him up. Oh, Bob in Jaws 2. And wow, he wrote on Newhart. He wrote on Martin, wrote on the Wayans Brothers. So many shows that I love. Really cool. And I'm like, whoa. Okay, so his brother, Steven Van Zandt from Bruce Springsteen, the state band, Bruce Springsteen and the E Street Band, and Sopranos actor, you know him well. But man, it was so cool to talk to a local guy from Jersey. He grew up where my family used to go down the shore in Sandy Hook. Grew up about 30 minutes from each other. But man, we talked about his book that he sent me an advance copy of, Get in the Car, Jane. Loved it. Halfway through, going to finish the rest as soon as I'm done with this. And we talked about how he met his writing partner, Jane Milmore, when they were in high school. She went to Keensburg, him Middletown. So it was just so cool to hear two people connect that young and write for 46 years together on some amazing shows. So you're going to get a lot of behind the scenes stories on like Jaws 2, things I never even heard about. One of the stories from the original Jaws 2 that he was in, they filmed for 4 weeks, is just crazy, but I'm not going to spoil it. Just chill out and listen to my interview with Billy Van Zandt. Sweet.
Oh, I recognize some of those pictures back
I know, right? The usual camera I used on my iPhone, for some reason the program didn't work, so I had to run and get my Nikon and download a program really quick. But I'm happy I got you.
Beautiful,
awesome, man.
Great.
We grew up not too far from each other. I grew up in South Plainfield.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Another Jersey guy. I love it.
Yeah, and we used to always go. That was my mom's preferable beach, Sandy Hook.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's the only safe one down there right now. It's so big.
Yeah. We went there once. Our daughter is like 19, 20 months. So we took her down there, and it was nice because there was like so many, like you said, it's so big.
Yeah.
There's so much to go to.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
It's cool, man. So how did it all begin? I started reading your book, which I must say is awesome. I love the way you wrote it. How'd you think of that? Is it just because the way you did your journal entries and your diary entries?
No, I started, originally I started because I wanted to write something for my kids.
Oh, cool.
They knew how my theater worked. They would attend all the rehearsals and they got the whole process, but they didn't know how the TV stuff worked.
Oh, okay.
So I started writing, I think the Brooke Shields Suddenly Susan chapter first. And then I put it aside for a long while. And a friend of mine, Bruce Ferber, who used to run Home Improvement,
nice.
Coach, one of those two. He was writing a bunch of novels, and for his next book, he wanted to do an anthology of different people, how they worked in Hollywood. And he called me up and he said, "Didn't you write something about Lucille Ball once?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Can I put that in my book?" And I said, "Yeah, sure." So I took it off the shelf. I looked at it and I went, "Let me see what else I've written." And that's how I started putting the book together. So every chapter is a different show, a TV show I worked on, and it was fun. I'm glad I did it.
Yeah, I love the way it's like complete thoughts. Not saying other people that write books about their careers aren't like that. It's like some are longer, a couple pages, and some are just like a little paragraph. I thought that was really neat.
Yeah. I wanted to, my idea was it would be a beach read, just you can pick it up, read a chapter, put it down, a week later, you can read it again. And, but now it's a pandemic read, I guess, 'cause, who knows?
Well, that's awesome, man. So how did it all begin? Like growing up, at what age? I know you love Lucy, but Well, who didn't? But how did it all start? Like, what was the first thing that made you think, like, I can do something like that?
I used to write little shows and perform for the neighborhood kids and all that sort of thing. Always did that. And then I started doing little community theater. But it was a drama teacher in 7th grade that sort of got me really charged up to go ahead and do this. And the worst day of my father's life was the day he said, "Yo, you're going to try it for the baseball team this year?" I said, "No, I'm going to be in the chorus of Oliver." Ruined his whole year. So I started doing community theater. The community theater led me to an agent and a manager in New York City. And one of my first auditions was Jaws 2.
That's crazy. So that was the first one. So they were casting, I'm sure, throughout the country, but it was in New York City, and you go and meet with just the casting director?
I met Shirley Rich, who was the casting director, and she also cast me in Taps. And she's a big casting lady. She's not around anymore. And then eventually I got to meet John Hancock, who was the director of Jaws 2.
Yeah, for a little bit.
I was in both Jaws 2s. I was in the John Hancock Jaws 2 and the Jeannot Swark Jaws 2. So a bunch of us ended up at the Hilton in New York on a Saturday, and we did improv after improv, and you read a scene with this guy, and then you read a scene with that guy. And then I went home. And I got a phone call saying, "You're in the film." So I went up to Martha's Vineyard. We spent 4 weeks rehearsing. They actually taped out our boats on dirt, on the shore, and we would rehearse in the afternoons. But for the most part, we got tan and we sailed. That was our day for 4 weeks. And we started to shoot. I think we did maybe 2-3 days worth of shooting. And suddenly everybody was sent home. And a couple of people were fired right on the spot too. And
wow.
We didn't really get an explanation of why. So I went home and I was told, "You'll get a call and wait." So I went home, I waited. I got a phone call saying, "You're going to Florida." So maybe a month later. And I flew down to Florida, where I met a new director, a new writer, and a whole new cast. I was I don't know why, but I was one of the only guys who did not have to re-audition. Keith Gordon told me they flew him back out to California, where he had to read for his role again. I never had to do it. Maybe one or two others, but I don't know. And I don't know why. I just don't know why. So we went down
good.
there.
That's why.
Well, I hope that's true. So we all met up in Florida, and we started shooting down there. And poor Carl Gottlieb, God love him, because now that I write, I sympathize with him. Yeah. He was in a hotel room all day writing whatever we were going to shoot the next day. And then he'd come out at night for dinner, and everybody that walked past him, "How's it going, Carl? Carl, how's it going?" He must have wanted to blow his brains out. And Jeannot was mostly a TV director. He did a lot of the Kojaks, and I don't know if he did a night gallery or not. I know Steven Spielberg did.
Oh, no, I think he did. When I talked to Joe Alves, he said, I don't know if he said he suggested him, but when they said the name, he knew he did a night gallery. Because there was some connection there.
Joe did suggest him.
Yeah.
Joe did suggest him. And he had done one movie called Bug, and he screened it for us when we all got down there. And it's basically the bugs take over the world, and it made perfect sense for him to come do Jaws 2. And he was a great guy, and as I do tell people, the audience doesn't care what went into the cake as long as the cake is good. Yeah. You know what I mean? So Jeannot, what he pulled off was phenomenal. It really was. Yeah. Most directors get a full year to figure out the film and the cast and how they want to shoot it. Jeannot probably had 3 weeks tops. And he was doing everything on the fly. Luckily, he was a TV director, so he was used to working fast. And at one point, I remember Michael Butler, yelling at him because Jeannot was like, "Okay, let's get the next setup. Let's get the next setup." And he went, "You're making a movie. You're not making a TV show. You can relax a little bit." And then there was one of the first days we were down there. Roy Scheider didn't want to do the film at all. He was contracted to do it. I know he had to give up the deer hunter to come do the film, which he was not too happy about.
Yeah.
And one of the first things we shot was the big Holodome scene, the Holiday Inn thing. And that was the only time I saw Roy blow up really ugly at Jeannot in front of all those extras, everybody you see in that scene. And it was one of the first days we shot, and the whole set.
And you were like, this is Hollywood.
No, my first introduction to Hollywood was Murray Hamilton, played the mayor, came up to me in the lobby of the hotel. I was sitting with Keith Gordon and Tom Dunlop, who played Timmy, and never met the man before. And he said, "Be careful. They'll kill you as long as they get the shot. They won't care." Then he walked away. And that was my introduction to
my God.
Film. And, but anyway, the reason I think Roy blew up was frustration at having to be there at all, first of all. But I think he was testing Jeannot just to see what he could get away with. And Jeannot been around a while, too. So he shut him down. And I think Roy grew to respect him as we went, but he was not a happy camper there.
Yeah, it was crazy when you look at back. Like I did it when I talked to Joe Alves, and then I just re-saw some of the things again, like just looking for research for the movie for you. Yeah. And it's crazy. Like in his biography, they said that he went to like the Beverly Hills Hotel and was like trying to like almost plead insanity to get out of the movie. Again, I don't know. Which is crazy.
I don't know that. I know Keith Gordon did all that jazz with him. He played the younger version of Roy and all that jazz. And,
okay.
And he said he was a totally different guy. He said he loved them on that film.
Yeah.
He wouldn't even say hello to us for the most part.
And they were giving him a deal, so to speak, like, because he had like, I think 3 pictures left with them. So they were like, do Jaws 2 and you'll be done. Like it will count as 2 movies. So you don't have to worry about doing any more, but.
Yeah, he didn't socialize with anybody on the film. When he wasn't shooting, he would sit on one of those real almost to the ground lounge chairs.
Yeah.
In his black Speedo with a sun reflector under his face. And he did that all day, every day he wasn't working. It was creepy, actually. I don't know why he did it. But he was tan enough, And we're shooting outside, so he was going to get tan as we went anyway.
I love that movie. We reviewed the movie, so like we like watched it a couple times and like took notes and like talked about it. And man, I love Jaws too. It's such a good, because that's what we cover as sequels. So like
right.
It's heightened. Like sometimes the sequels try to do the same thing, but in this one, a lot of the movie, like your characters are introduced, all the younger kids, and then also like the shark's almost like, I don't know. It's like that one kind of silly line when Roy Schneider's talking to the woman on the beach. I don't know what she is. Some marine biologist or something.
Oh, yeah.
Like, could sharks like have revenge? And you're like, wow, the shark was like a serial killer because they showed so many like almost POV of the shark, like watching you guys or just watching other people.
No, the shark was a serial killer in Jaws 4, I think. I think that's true. No, we got along good with the shark. It didn't break down as much as everybody said it was going to.
That's good.
That was good. And we were all young and stupid, so we did anything they asked us to do, really. They actually had us sail our boat into the other boat. There were no stunt people. That was us.
Oh, my God.
And when the helicopter flips upside down and the blades went flying everywhere, they had us get on the trampoline, and then they threw blades at us.
Oh, my God.
And we were too stupid to go, wait a minute, there's something wrong here. And my death, which is behind you.
Yeah.
I want that footage to surface so bad, I can't tell you. The original script was very dark, the John Hancock version. Was very dark, and it was the town was all boarded up and creepy, no business, all that sort of thing. And then the Holiday Inn was going to save the town.
Oh wow!
And that's why he didn't want to open the beach again, or he wanted to open the beach again. So in the original, I played Robert Shaw's son. Although aside from me singing the sea shanty that he sang about bow-legged women, I whistled it on the ferry in the first scene.
What?
Yeah, that was the first thing we shot with John Hancock, and then I had a gruesome death in the first one too, to sort of match Robert Shaw's. I was on that pontoon and I was swimming towards shore, and all of a sudden I'm pushed through the water, and Roy Scheider reaches down and grabs my hand and he pulls me up, but only this much of me came out of the water.
Oh.
It was great. It was great. And they thought that was going to be too bloody, and they were getting scared about R-rated movies. So they had me, they made a cast of my legs, and they were going to have the shark chomp off the bottoms of my legs. It's just as gruesome as the other one, so they threw that out. Then, in the rewrite, it became a PG movie. It was definitely had to be PG. So you'll notice the colors are very bright, and the acting is very bright. But I still had a death. And what they were going to do is they put me on that pontoon, and actually they put a stuntman on that pontoon, and the shark comes crashing down, almost like Marge's death. And the shark and Bob disappear under the water. That's why Jackie is screaming like a lunatic at the end of the film, because she just watched me get killed. Okay, so poor Donna Wilkes gets such flack for screaming in the end of that movie, but she was directed to scream. And so they did it with a stuntman, and Jeannot was very nice to let all the actors look at the dailies. So we would sit in the theater in the Holiday Inn, and we would watch what we shot the day before. And I watched it, and I thought, that looks like a stuntman. I want to do this. So I went to David Brown, and I said, I want to shoot that scene. And he said, what? I said, I want to shoot that scene. He said, he thought about it. He went, all right, but it's going to have to be the last thing we shoot in Florida. I said, why does it have to be the last thing we shoot? He said, in case you die. So, but he agreed, and I got out on that thing, and they had ropes around my waist. They had scuba divers under the water, and that ton worth of metal came charging at me and crashed down on top of me. And right as it crashed down on top of me, the scuba divers yanked me underwater. So the shark and I and the pontoon all disappeared at the same time. And Jackie went screaming and all this other thing.
Oh, my God.
But then they were, in hindsight, it was one of the stupidest things I ever did in my life, because I could have been killed.
Yeah.
But it was great. The crew kept calling me Buster Keaton because I was doing my own stunts. And so they went right after Christmas. They had us come out to California to do a couple of pickup scenes, maybe 2-3 weeks worth. And one of the things they did was have me crawl up on the rocks and ad lib, thank you. And they said, we're not sure if you get to die or not, because the ratings board is threatening us with an R-rated movie based on how many people die in the film. So I said, okay, you there? Okay.
Yeah, no, I'm here. Just this camera's.
Okay.
Don't you worry about it.
All right. So, so I didn't know till I saw the movie in the theater whether I lived or died.
Yeah.
Fortunately, I lived.
Good.
The weird thing is, if you the end of the movie, when you see the master of they pull back and you see Roy in the little boat, you see all the kids on the island. I'm not there, but supposedly I'm alive and crawled up on the rocks, but I'm not there. So if you really want to work the logic of this, I must have been so scared of that shark, I swam around the back of the island, and that's where I am, and that's why I'm not in the last scene.
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah, but I'm sure that footage exists somewhere, and I want to see it.
Yeah, I don't know. I remember one of those years that there was like some one of those storage facilities. Like, I know you mentioned Carl Gottlieb. Like, I don't want to say I'm friends with, but I helped Larry Hankin, like the actor, like go back and forth and helping him like get all of his like credits and things that he remembered, stories over the years, like on recording.
Yeah.
So he, for being an Oscar nominee for a short he did in 1980, they have a master that they keep in a vault somewhere. So in that vault, the air conditioning like blew. So all in that area. And there were some like big time albums in there. I forget.
Oh.
I don't know. I'm sure it's not in there, but.
Oh. Well, I know Michael Smith did a book on Jaws 2, the making of Jaws 2. And he apparently went and searched Universal's vaults, and he couldn't find it.
That's crazy.
He wanted my death scene, and
What the death scene?
And actually, it's funny. We keep in touch. A lot of us from that movie. It's
That's great.
That's our graduating class in a way, So we all get together once in a while.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
About 4 years ago, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, Tom Dunlop, who played Timmy, called me up and he said, "I'm coming to LA. Can we have dinner?" I said, "Yeah, sure." And I said, I was just about to have dinner with Gigi Vorgan, who plays Brooke in the movie. I said, "I'll invite her too." He said, "Great." And I hung up the phone. I thought about it. And I started getting on the phone. And within 48 hours, I had the entire cast, the entire crew, and we all met at a restaurant in Westwood and spent the night just having a ball with each other. Lorraine Gary came.
Nice.
Sid Sheinberg around Universal came.
Wow.
Al Gottlieb, Jano Swark, Joe Alves, and all the teenagers, and Joe Mascolo, who played Len Peterson. We had a ball. We just had a ball. It was as if we had just seen each other the day before. It was great.
That's amazing. That's pretty cool. No, I never knew that you mentioned before, that when you were talking about like they had a re-audition and not you. So I can't believe, I would love to read that script, that you're Robert Shaw's son.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It would have made a good film. I think the one we did was a good film, but it would have been a different film, and yeah.
Where's that footage? Like that 4 weeks that he was able to shoot before they changed the whole movie. I didn't know they changed the whole movie. That's crazy.
There were 2 scenes I remember shooting. One was me on a bicycle and David Elliott, who played the mayor's son. The 2 of us went past 2 girls and were hitting on them. And then David got a ticket for riding a bike on the ferry, and he rips it up because his father's the mayor.
Yeah.
Like in the original movie, he was a bully. He was a town bully, the mayor's son, and I was his creep sidekick. And suddenly we weren't that in the second film. We were just many teenagers. In fact, Keith Gordon and I, when we got down to Florida, there were so many kids in this film. We went, "How are we going to stand out? We got to stand out. We got to find some way to stand out."
Oh.
And we both ran for the props department. But he got there before I did, so he got glasses, so he could tell people he was the guy with the glasses. And I grabbed that gray hat and threw that on my head. I said, "Okay, I got a gray hat. At least I can tell people I'm the guy with the gray hat." And yeah, there were a lot of us. There were a lot of us in that film.
That's cool. Now, one line that I know it's improvised, but the one that the mayor's son says about the girl, she's got tits like a sparrow.
Like a sparrow, yeah.
How'd that get in there?
I don't know. We were one of the first scenes we shot. I think we did the Holodome first, but we were all doing those introductory scenes on the docks.
Yeah.
And we all were basically told to ad lib our openings there. So David came up with that line, and I ad libbed. "Do you have to talk like that?" And I know I wrote a scene for Keith and Tom where he says, "She wants you." "No, she doesn't. I'm a kid from Amity. I wear glasses. No, why would she want me?" Whatever that is. And then Keith goes, "Yeah, you're right. She probably wasn't looking at you." I wrote that for them.
Really?
Yeah. And
on the spot, or did you talk to Carl? Oh, cool.
No, Carl wasn't there. It was at the beginning, at least, it was so on the fly.
Yeah, I bet.
It just was crazy. One of the horrible things that happened on the way to that dock scene for me is we would get into a van at the hotel, and they would drive us to wherever we were going to shoot. And the night before, somebody was pounding on my door at the hotel room, and I thought somebody's playing a prank, and I just ignored it. And the next day I get in the van, and the assistant director says, "Van Zandt, are you related to the rock star Van Zandt who died in the plane crash last night?" Now, my brother was on tour with Bruce Springsteen at the time.
Oh, my God.
And this is before cell phones. So I quickly got off that van, and I ran into the hotel, and I'm trying to get my parents on the phone to politely ask if they've talked to Steven lately. And they hadn't. So I was like, and and we found that it was Leonard Skinner's band, which of course is awful too.
Yeah.
But not as awful as it being your brother.
Oh, yeah.
So that was a weird day for me to go shoot a movie. The funny part of that, Steven came home from tour in time to see people had sent funeral arrangements to my parents' house. So he walked in and all these flowers for his death were sitting there. And he said, he looked at one little one, he went, "That's all they thought of me?"
How was that growing up with him? Because you both seem very funny and animated.
We had a fun house. We had a fun house. And we all had incredible work ethics. Steven was always out playing somewhere. We literally had garage bands all over the neighborhood. People were in each other's garages playing. He was either at the McGively's or he was at Tommy Besh's or wherever. And I was always doing shows for the kids in the neighborhood. We were raising money for Jerry Lewis's,
Jerry's Kids, nice.
Yeah. And but now my father was, I put it to this, my father was an ex-Marine, and he had a work ethic. He said, "I don't care if you're going to dig ditches for a living, you're going to dig the best ditch you ever saw in your life." It's like, okay. So we were, that was drummed into our head very early on that you had to work to accomplish something. And my mother, Italian family we grew up with, she was the safety net of love, basically, that, you knew that if you failed, you had a home to go back to,
Yeah.
So between the two of them, we were set. We were good.
That's
good. You always read about people have horrible childhoods, and that's why they go into show business. We didn't have that. And my sister, I have a sister who's a writer as well.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Where's it go? You're the middle?
I'm in the middle. I'm the good child.
You're the...
Yeah. So,
what does she write? TV?
She for many, many years, she worked for Condé Nast and all the different publications as a copy editor. And she's got a novel she's been working on that she should finish during this pandemic. I keep pushing her, but we'll see. And so we had a busy household.
That's awesome. So did you influence her at all, you think? Were you doing it?
No.
Oh, okay.
No.
She was already doing it?
Yeah, she's probably the best writer of the three of us, I would say. Yeah.
Oh, nice. So after Jaws 2, when you're done with that, what are you thinking? Are you thinking like, I'm an actor now?
Well, no, I thought I was an actor before. I thought I was an actor before I even had auditions. I just kept waiting for it to, how does this work?
Yeah.
I remember when Jaws 2 opened, the local theater, which is now a Target, I guess.
Oh, where'd you go? Down by you?
In Middletown, yeah.
Oh, that must have been cool.
It was fun. They put my name on the marquee, which was really sweet. And I go in, they had me do an appearance there. So I go in, and this woman comes up to me and she says, "Oh, can I get an autograph?" I said, "Sure." And I signed an autograph. She said, Would you do one for my son? And I said, "Of course." And I signed. "Can you do one for my daughter?" I said, "Absolutely." And my neighbors, I have three for my neighbors. I said, "Of course." And I'm signing and signing. I said, "So did you see Jaws 2? And she said, "No, we're going in to see Grease because John Travolta's better than you." That was my introduction to celebrity.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Now after Jaws 2, the auditions were few and far between. I'm not a particular type. You don't look at me and go, "Oh, that's the guy that should play the blank."
Yeah.
So the next film I did was Star Trek, and the first Star Trek movie, and I had all this elaborate makeup on because I was the other alien on the ship, and there was a rumor at the time. It wasn't a rumor because I was told this by Robert Wise, that Leonard Nimoy hadn't finalized his contract and he may not come to work. So if he doesn't show up, you're going to have a bigger role than it was like, oh, okay. Well, of course he showed up.
Of course.
I wasn't expecting anything else, but of course he showed up. So I spent 4 months sitting in the background, typing on a pad and looking at the big screen. And I remember going to George Takei saying, because I wanted to do everything right. I knew the Trekkies knew everything that there was to know. Yeah. And I said, what do I press? He said, "I don't know. I just do this." And I was like, okay, fine. So anyway, because of all my elaborate makeup, I wasn't allowed to leave the dressing room for lunch, or I had to stay hidden because there was a lot of secrecy about the movie.
Yeah.
So I told Jane Milmore, who was my girlfriend at the time and became my writing partner. She brought my typewriter before computers into the dressing room, and every time everybody else went to lunch, we started writing a show,
Oh, that's
a play, to give ourselves something to act in. That's sort of where that all started. And then the plays took off and had a life of their own, and I didn't have to worry about being typecast because I wrote my own roles.
Yeah, no, it's cool that, so you met, she was from Keensburg, right?
Yes, she was, she graduated a year before I did, I think. We met in our sophomore and junior years at what was a theater competition, a high school theater competition down in Rumson, New Jersey.
Oh, okay.
At the Barn Theater, it was called. It's now a restaurant. And we were immediately put into a Neil Simon play called Star Spangled Girl that summer. And we immediately started dating. And we did that show for about 2 years. And then, we started just writing shows together too.
Yeah, I'm sorry to see that she passed when I was reading that.
Thank you. Yes, it's been a very rough year.
I bet that's a long.
Boy, has it been a rough year.
Yeah, that's a long time that you worked together.
We were together 46 years. Yeah, and yeah, and the weirdest part is we started out as boyfriend girlfriend, then we broke up, and then we get back together, and we break up, and get back together, and break up, and finally we said, enough of this. Let's let's grow up and
stick to writing.
Stop. And the weird part is we dated, we broke up, we were bitter enemies after we broke up. Then we became sort of friendly. Then we got to be back as great friends, best friends. And we didn't miss one single day of work in 46 years doing all of that. So it's a little odd, but we pulled it off.
It's cool to take that journey with someone that you knew, like, growing up, especially at a young age. You're sitting there, I'm not saying you do this, but you're on Newhart and you're like, holy shit, that's Bob Newhart. It's like,
Yeah. He spoiled us. Bob Newhart was the first TV job we worked, the first sitcom we did. And he was the sweetest guy, is the sweetest guy. There was no ego involved with him. He spent more time making sure that the supporting actors had more to do, better things to do, and don't worry about him,
Yeah.
We also shot everything one take per scene, like a play. And we started at 7:00, and he had a standing dinner reservation at 9:00, and he had to make that reservation. So, unlike TV shows that came later where you do every scene 9 times, you're there till 3 a.m, and nothing you shoot at 3 a.m. is any better than you would have done it at 7:00. So, but Bob Newhart spoiled me. But that was my first taste of, oh my God, look who I'm working with. And
were you there till the end of that, or did you already start the new job? Were you there for
we were there the year before it ended, and
okay.
we knew how the series was going to end.
Oh, you knew already? That was already predetermined?
Yeah, a lot of people have taken credit for it, but the truth is Bob Newhart's wife, Ginny, thought of the ending.
Oh,
and
nice.
She thought of it probably 4 years before the series ended.
That's awesome.
And every year, whatever writing staff there was, they sort of knew that it was going to end that way, and then they get picked up for another year and put on the back burner. But we stayed very friendly with everybody there. I'm still good friends with Julia Duffy, and it was great. It was just a great family feel there, and I got to work with some incredible people. I mean, for a kid from New Jersey who had no showbiz connections whatsoever. I got to work with all the people I grew up watching on TV. It was really, really great.
Yeah, no. And the Lucy, that part, the thing that was mind-blowing about all that, obviously the whole story of you interacting with her, going to her house, but the fact that your story of going to her house is the same thing of her going to Chaplin's house. That is like...
Yes, yeah. It was funny because when I came out to do Jaws 2 out here, that scene, I went straight from the airport to Lucy's house.
It's crazy.
And I knew the address from some magazines or something.
Yeah.
And I wanted to meet her, So she influenced me into going into comedy. She taught me timing, and her writers taught me how to write. So I wanted to meet her, So we pull up in front of her house, and I start to get out of the car, and Jane just freaked out. "What are you doing?" I said, "I have to meet her." And I walked up the walkway, and I knocked on the door and said, "Billy Van Zandt's here to see Lucille Ball." And the houseboy, she's not home, and slammed the door in my face. We got in the car and we left. 10 years later, as you were saying, I'm sitting in her house as her guest, and we're talking about a bunch of stuff. And I said, "Did you ever meet Charlie Chaplin?" I said, "I know he influenced your work. I've seen you imitate him in your shows, but I've never seen a picture of the two of you together." She said, "No, but I'll tell you a story. Gary, my husband, and I were in Switzerland in 1976, and we found out where he lived. So we drove over to the house. And I started to get out of the car, and Gary said, 'What are you doing?' I said, 'I got to meet Charlie Chaplin.' So he hid in the car, and I walked up the walkway, and I knocked on the door, and a big fat housekeeper answers the door, and I said, 'Hi, Lucille Ball's here to see Charlie Chaplin.' They said, 'He's not home,' and slammed the door in my face." And we had just been, I never told her my half of that story, because we had just been talking about how her house was right on the street, and there, there's no gate or anything. It was just on the street. And somebody said something about fans, and she said, "Oh no, with one push of a button, if there are fans who get out of hand, bars will come down over the windows." And I thought, I can't say a word about what I did, or they're going to throw me out of the house,
But that is so cool when you're like thinking like, I'm this normal person fanning out, and Lucille Ball is fanning out in the same way. So that's pretty neat.
Yeah, isn't that fun? Yeah.
So one thing I found interesting, obviously we can't cover all the things that you worked on, but it was so cool where you got to a point after that, you're Anything in Bluff, which, to be honest, I never heard of that show, but man, talk about, those are two people, even just hearing that they were in a show together, Richard Lewis and Jamie Lee Curtis.
That was a good show. It was a really good show.
Yeah, I got to try to find it. I'm sure it's somewhere.
And Ann Magnuson, I don't know if you know her at all, but great actress. And she made her TV debut in that. And Holly Folger, who you've seen in a bunch of things. And this guy, Joe Mahar, who one of the best stage actors there ever was.
Oh, wow.
And he did a lot of Joe Orton's plays in London. And Jane and I were offered to be in the show and write for it. And that was at a time where you didn't go into the other camp. You were either a writer for a show or you were a performer. Nobody got to be on the show and write it at the same time until The Office. Nobody really did that. And now it's commonplace for, if you're in the show, you're also a writer.
Was that something that you mentioned? Like you and Jane said, "Hey, we're going to do this if we're in it," or did they offer that right off the bat?
We were hesitant to go, and I wanted to stay on Newhart. And Peter Noah, who was running Anything But Love, was putting his staff together. He offered it to get us over to the show. And so, well, we can be on the show. Let's go. So we went. Yeah.
And Richard Lewis, like a lot of these people you see on you see the way he is on Curb, and just the way you write about him with the Xerox. And it's like, dude, this guy is just like Larry. That's who they are, in real life.
Yeah. He actually called me up because he got my book. And he said, "Congratulations on the book. I can't wait to read it." And I went, "Oh, great, thanks." And I hung up and went, "What do I say about him?" And I got the book and I'm reading it. It's like, no, I don't say anything really bad. So he liked that I got his stamp of approval on it. But yeah, he's a little neurotic, but you know what? It's made a very good living for him.
And it worked. Yeah, it's like perfect. Usually some people have like a persona. He doesn't. It's him.
Yeah.
He's cool.
Yeah.
So in the 90s, like after Anything But Love, like every year you're working, you're busy. Are you still thinking about acting at this point? Like, are you auditioning at all? Or are you just too busy?
No, what I would do is once a year we would write a new play. And so so we would do our TV stuff during the year and occasionally do a little tiny walk-on role on whatever show it was, but not all the time.
Yeah, I saw a few of them on there, yeah.
Yeah, and when most people would take a vacation to Europe when the shows ended, Jane and I would fly back to New Jersey and we would do a show. So we did it for God, maybe 30 straight years.
Wow. Where was your theater at in Jersey?
We started at a theater called the Dam Site, which was in Tinton Falls.
Oh, okay.
And that was produced by Kathy Reed and Dennis Lynch. It was at the time, I think it was one of the longest running dinner theaters in New Jersey.
Wow.
And they put on our first play. And then they brought us back the next year to do our second play, third and fourth play, I think. And then that theater closed, and we took it over, and we ran that for a couple more years. Again, every May, June, we would do a new show. And then we moved over to Brookdale College in Lincroft.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And we stayed there right until we had just moved our play, You've Got Hate Mail, off Broadway. It was, I think, our 5th off-Broadway show. And we couldn't time it out because we were very successful in New York. So we couldn't do the show in New York and do a show at the college. So that was sort of when we stopped doing that.
What was that like, being on Broadway and having such a success?
It was fantastic. It was fantastic. Nobody told me I couldn't do these things, so I sort of jumped in and did it. We did our first show. Jane and I produced all the shows we did in New York ourselves, and the first play was Drop Dead, and the only reason that came about at all was we had done the show at our theater in New Jersey, and somebody in the audience came up to us and said, this is fantastic. If you're going to go to New York, I want to get a piece of this. I said, what? He said, yeah, I'll write you a check. I said, we're definitely going to New York. And he wrote us a big check.
Oh, my God.
And then I went, okay, now I got to raise the rest of it. So I started calling, my friends of my father's, and grabbed money a little bit at a time. And I figured out how much it would cost. I don't remember now how much it would cost to do a 6-week run in New York. And I raised that much money. So we did the show, and after 6 weeks, sold out every night. I returned the money to all the people that lent it to us, and we went home. It never dawned on me I could have kept the show running, and it'd probably still be running right now. So that was our first. And once you do that, once you make the leap to do something for the first time, the second time isn't that tough,
So what are you paying for? Just so you have to pay to rent out the theater, and then you cover everything? How does that work?
Yeah, you pay for the rental, you pay for the insurance, you pay for the rehearsal hall, you pay for the actors, the tech, you have to build a set.
Oh, so you pay for all of that?
You pay for everything, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So they have nothing to do with it. What theater was it in?
It was I don't think it's there anymore. It was called the No Smoking Playhouse. It had been a firehouse, and then it was converted into a
That must have been pretty cool looking inside.
It was fun. It was really fun. And then we did... The second show we did was my silent movie show called Silent Laughter. And that was a live slapstick silent movie comedy performed on stage with a big Wurlitzer organ playing along with us. We all did it in shades of black, gray, and white. There were title cards with the actors' dialogue over our heads for the audience to read.
Oh, that's cool.
It was, and we did some incredibly difficult Buster Keaton stunts on stage, and then it ended every night with a massive pie fight of 200 pies flying at each other. So that was fun. And we ran. Unfortunately, that was too close to. It was afterwards, but it was too close to 9/11, and people weren't really rushing to New York to be tourists. So we didn't. I think we did 8 weeks of that show, and I can't remember the other ones. Well,
Were you always in them?
Excuse me?
Do you always like to put yourself in them? You like
the only reason I write them. The only reason I write them. The only one I was not in was a show called The Pennies, which was a spoof of The Monkees. We pretended it was the show that was on opposite The Monkees, and it was sort of a behind-the-scenes documentary version of what happened to our band.
Yeah.
And for publicity reasons, there used to be a big car show in Red Bank, New Jersey, and they would have a big stage set up, and all these oldies bands come in and play. Well, I talked them into putting our band on, and our four guys came out with guitars that were not attached to anything, and they sang vocals to the tracks we had recorded. And we said, "You remember the show The Monkees?" And everybody in the audience, "Yeah." "You remember the show opposite them, The Pennies?" And there was a little hesitation. And everybody went, "Yeah." And they did like 5-6 songs. People came down the aisles, were dancing. They all thought it was an actual show. So that was a lot of fun. But
Were you able to film any of that?
No, I never did.
That would be really fun.
No, I wish I had. I really wish I had. But I was not in that one on purpose because I did not want to go into the area of where my brother works. There's something too weird about me with a guitar.
That's true.
But then he did The Sopranos, and it was like, wait a minute, now you're in my
what are you doing?
territory.
That's my territory, man. How did that happen? How did he even get approached?
My father, my brother, and I were on a golf course. And Steven's phone rang because he never turned it off when he played golf, which was a lot of fun. And it was David Chase, who had seen him, I think, the night before or 2 nights before on the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inducting the Young Rascals. And Steven did a shtick about being Italian. This is the first Italian band to get into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And I just remember him going, "What? You want me to what? I could call you back." And it turned out David said he saw such an actor in my brother's face, he wanted him on the show. So Steven came out here to California, and he went to audition for the role of Tony Soprano, which mind-blowing right there.
That's awesome.
And he went in, and Chris Albrecht said, "Very good, but there's no way," he was the head of HBO, "there's no way I'm going to star you in a multi-million-dollar show if you've never even acted before." So David Chase said to Steven, "Well, think of another role, and I'll write that." So Steven came up with the role he played. And David Chase
no way.
And the other connection I have to The Sopranos was I developed a show for Brooke Shields called Suddenly Susan.
Yeah.
And I had a great cast for that. It's the story's in the book. It's too long to go into.
Yeah.
But it was a devastating couple of weeks. Jane and I were brought in to save this show from the ash heap, basically. And we rewrote it, cast it, filmed it, edited it, and turned it in 2 weeks. Normally you get about 8 months.
Yeah.
And they picked the show up for the fall schedule, but they let Jane and me go and brought in writers that he wanted to use in the first place. And so that was my prize for doing that. But when they fired us, they fired our entire cast. One of which was Nancy Marchand.
Oh, no way.
Had they not fired her, she would not have been free to do Livia Soprano.
Oh my God.
So, yeah.
Have you created a lot of shows? I've interviewed a few writers that their IMDb doesn't have all the shows they created that maybe didn't make it to air, like pilots. Have you developed any other shows over the years that aren't on there?
I've done. They're listed in the back of the book there.
Oh, they are? Okay, cool.
We've done tons of pilots. And there's always, if they don't film them, because sometimes they turn them down just in written form because it doesn't fit what they're doing, that doesn't hurt as bad. But when you film it and you think you've done everything right and it doesn't get picked up, that one hurts. So there've been a couple of those along the way too. But we developed the Wayans Brothers show, Brooke Shields show. We did the one for Don Rickles and Richard Lewis called Daddy Dearest.
That must have been insane to see them two work together.
Oh my God, was that fun? That was fun. Don and Bob Newhart were they were best friends, and you can see why. They were the nicest people I ever met in my life. And we, unfortunately, Daddy Dearest came out right at the beginning of the height of political correctness.
Yeah.
And you hired Don Rickles to do basically his act, and then you're told 2 seconds later, except he can't do his act. It's like, what? So we had fights at the network between the show I wanted to do, which I thought was the right show, and the show they wanted to do, which was toned down Don, don't have to insult anybody. So that was, we only did that one for a year. And actually, if you go on YouTube, you can see some of the funniest outtakes.
Oh yeah, I'll check them out.
There. Yeah.
So you talked about like developing like the Wayne's brothers. So like so did you develop Martin too? Because you were on that for the first season.
First season. I will say we didn't develop the Martin character or that storyline, but what Jane and I did was we created the roles of Stan and Sean in the radio station and developed those.
Oh, nice.
And then we Roscoe, the little kid, Roscoe was the little kid he used to play on his
yeah.
You know, we created that
with
one.
the snots saying yeah.
We created him. We created Otis, the security guard. There were a couple more. I can't remember.
Broman, the guy that lived upstairs.
No, that was after we left. We left. That was an interesting one. Now, Martin was quite interesting. He was very tough to work with, but I will say in his defense, and I talk about him in the book in length, and it's not always complimentary.
Yeah.
But to stand up for him, I thought he was comedically. I thought he was a genius.
Oh yeah.
And when you work with a stand-up comedian, they've been their own writer, they've been their own producer, they've been their own director and performer for probably 10 years before they come to you as a producer to produce them in a sitcom.
Yeah.
So there's a weird trust thing that, why should I listen to you? I know what I've been doing for all those years, and look, it's got me where I am. And he was very slow to trusting other people. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah. And then from there they go, hey, you guys really did good with Martin, helping out Martin. And is that how that works? You did so good there, like, hey, let's go over to Wayne's Brothers?
This is so stupid, but this is how Hollywood works. You do one thing, they think you're the expert at that, and so therefore you should do, any show that stars a black guy. And it was like, well, wait a minute. They're different people. They have different styles of comedy.
Yeah.
Just because I did Martin has nothing at all to do with the Wayans brothers, except that they're both black.
Yeah.
And there's nothing to do with D.L. Hughley, except that they're black. I didn't turn down the work.
No, I know.
But it's very weird. And I did a British translation of a British show with Olympia Dukakis and Richard Mulligan and Michael McKean and Julie Haggerty from Airplane.
Oh, sweet.
Called Waiting for God. It's about people in an assisted living place. And it was so funny. And the show was a huge hit in London. I thought this was a no-brainer. And we did a fantastic job on the pilot, I will say. And CBS decided, that was the one year they decided they weren't going to do shows for older people. They wanted to go young. So they didn't pick us up.
Oh, man, Julie Haggerty, man, she's the best.
She is hilarious. She was hilarious. And Michael McKean, I got to work with him. And that's a good story in the book, actually.
I can't wait to get that. I'm telling you, I really just started it on Sunday, and I have my daughter at home. I'm working full time, going back to school, doing this all the time, writing myself. Yeah. And I'm like, man, I couldn't stop reading it. It's good.
Good. Thanks.
I enjoyed it. So so obviously you're always writing, right? You'll be writing till the end.
Yeah.
You'll never stop, right?
No, I get up and go right to the computer, really. And I will say that even while Jane was sick for a good long while, she was sick it came out of the blue. She had no symptoms at all. And she turned yellow overnight, and that's when they went, something's wrong. And it turned out to be pancreatic cancer. Ugh. But she didn't have any pain, nothing. And so we kept thinking, it's a wrong diagnosis, this is a bump in the road, whatever it is, they'll fix it. And 15 months she fought for this thing. And she insisted we work. So even while she was at her sickest, we were working 2 days a week.
Wow.
And she had projects she wanted to do next, So, so I've got a lot of half-finished things on a shelf right now. that I will now finish. You know,
What was the process you guys had over the years? Was it like one of you would be like have an idea and just like get to it? Did you dedicate time, or how'd you guys work?
we always have had maybe 3-4 things going at once. Whatever we were immediately working on, but we'd still be talking about what we're going to do next. We're still working on.
Of course.
And so we'd have things. So if this one didn't work out, you immediately go over to that one. Workaholic, as you can tell.
No, yeah.
Every show was different. The TV stuff, we were under contract in development for many years, so they're paying you to come up with ideas to go sell to the network. So we would dedicate a certain amount of time to just doing that. But for the plays, for the most part, it was, okay, who do we want to work with? What actors do we want to work with? We had a company, we have a company, the Van Zandt Milmore Unofficial Repertory Company, who are just friends that we've been working with for 40 years.
Yeah.
And you know, there is no company, but we call them up, you know, we need you for the next show. Okay, I'm there. There's always a different way to get into those shows. The silent laughter, I know we did because I was a Buster Keaton fan, and a friend said, God, I'd love to see you in one of those. I was like, all right, and you will. A Night at the Nutcracker was the Marx Brothers show, a musical we wrote. And that one, I remember I had on a Sunday, I had just watched A Night at the Opera with my kids who were young at the time. And I was thinking, God, I would love to have written for the Marx Brothers.
Yeah.
And I walked into work the next day at the studio, and Jane says, I know what we want to do next. We're going to do a Christmas show. I said, no, I want to do a Marx Brothers show. She said, Christmas, Marx Brothers. A Night at the Nutcracker. They go to the ballet. I said, done. And we wrote that immediately. So the plays, they all come out of left field, you know. And the thing I found the most is something that terrifies me is usually the right choice. That's the one I want to work on. Because we've written musicals. Nobody told us we couldn't write a musical, so we wrote a musical. A live slapstick comedy on stage. Why not? Let's try it. You know, those kind of things. And then You've Got Hate Mail, which was another one that now it's perfect timing for Zoom theater. It was the story of Jane's divorce told through emails. So it was 5 actors and 5 laptop computers, and you're reading, you know, you're writing to that person, and they're reacting and writing back. And it was the story of her divorce told through emails. And that one was also scary because it was like, wait a minute, nobody moves. We just stand at a desk, and it worked. And I went down to, that one's done all over the world now. I went down to Mexico City to see it, and it was great. The one best.
That's like surreal to see, like in another country, something you wrote being translated and done like.
Absolutely. We for some reason, we're very big in Poland. I don't quite know why, but they do all our shows in Poland. And Teresa, my girlfriend, and I, we flew over to Warsaw 2 years ago, I guess, because coincidentally, 2 theaters in the same city were doing 2 different shows of mine. So we went over and saw one show, and then the next 2 nights later, we saw the show at a different theater. It was really fun. I didn't understand a word they were saying, but luckily I knew the plots because I seen the shows.
I know what they're supposed to say right here. It doesn't sound like it.
Yeah.
I don't know if you ever saw the Phil Rosenthal documentary when he goes over. I think it's Russia. They're doing a Russian. Yeah. Everybody loves Raymond.
In fact, Jane's husband Richard was. Phil sold the show, and Jane's husband Richard went over to Russia and ran the show.
Oh, no way! So he's probably in it, yeah.
And then Phil flew over and filmed his documentary as if he was running it the whole time. Richard had been running it, but yeah, the Sony, I guess, is the company that does the most. They go to all the different countries and take American shows, and they do them for their country. I know Martin's been done in Mexico, And that was funny for me because they flipped out when they found that I had written for Martin, and all these people started doing Shanae impressions.
What?
In Spanish. It was very strange. It was very strange. Anyway.
Oh my God. So when you're writing, so now I'm going to ask you a question selfishly about writing. Me and my buddy are writing a pilot, and now we're writing like a screenplay. So we just got some advice from a guy. He's a producer, but we know him. He's from South Plainfield. It's actually surprisingly like 3 or 4 people from our small town. One writes on The Simpsons and helped develop F is for Family with Bill Burr. This guy, Mike Price, crazy. He graduated with my parents. I had no idea. Nice. And so anyway, we talked to this other guy today, and he's like, I like your idea, but try to attach people to your pilot. Is that something that you would do? Are you still, I'm sure, I think you're still writing. Are you writing any pilots or series ideas still?
I've got a couple on a shelf. I've got 2 that I love. I think they're the best 3. I thought they're the 3 best things we've ever written.
Oh, nice.
And one's a kid's show. One is a 1-hour drama, which we never did before. And another one is a 1-camera.
Well, you said nobody told you couldn't, so that's why.
Exactly right. Exactly right.
I like that.
Here's what I've learned in all my many years of show business. Nobody knows anything.
Yeah, no, that's true.
They know nothing. Sometimes attaching somebody to your show is fantastic, but getting the right person or who you may think is, this person's fantastic. Well, he may not be worth anything to the people who are buying the show.
No, that's true. Yeah.
So I think the ultimately the written word is what
is key.
Works. It either works or it doesn't work. And if people flip over it, fantastic. I think the easiest way to sell things today is to do webisodes. You can film those on your phone. And do 3 minutes at a time. You can film the whole pilot.
That's a good idea. A guy just sold Bel Air for Will Smith.
There've been so many people and so many shows that are now coming through webisodes. I think it doesn't cost anything.
That's a good idea.
Yeah. Even I don't know, Mary Neely. I don't know if you know who she is. She took Instagram, I guess, by storm during the pandemic when she, trapped in her own house, decided to recreate all these different musical movie moments.
Oh, really?
All the roles. She puts on a wig for this one, and she shot it. She was her own director. She was all her. She now has deals all over the place.
Oh.
And that's just somebody doing what you can yourself. A lot of people depend on the hope an agent. Well, don't wait for the agent. I mean, send it to your agent, but go do stuff yourself.
No, that's true. And just keep writing, right? That's what you got to do, is just keep.
Yeah. I mean, I started out as an actor who wrote. I didn't know what I was doing. And if you look at our first early shows, you go, geez, this is terrible. But and I learned, and if you read all my shows in order, you can see how I learn the craft as I go. And by about the 7th show, you go, oh, no, now he knows how to write. But the more you do, the better you get. It's, just true.
No, that's great. Is there anything, I always try to ask this to people, is there anything from all of the acting and shows you worked on, is there any mementos that you kept that you have, the hat from Jaws 2 or I
do have the hat from Jaws 2.
Yeah.
I had the life jacket too, but I had an accident with a leaky roof in an attic and destroyed it. What do I have? I don't have.
That'd be great. The next time, once this is all over, you show up for the dinner, you go get a dye job and you show up with that.
Yeah. From Star Trek, I wish I'd stolen that costume. It sold. The costume I wore sold for $40,000 last year. Yeah.
How'd they get it?
I don't know. I did the polite thing and I hung it up in the dressing room before I left. From Star Trek, I have the mold of my head that they made, plaster Paris mold. Taps, I have my glasses.
Oh, nice.
And from the TV shows, I don't think I do. It gets to be stuff. I don't like
No, I know.
stuff. You know.
No, you have all the memories. You can go on Hulu or
Yeah.
wherever and be like, oh, I remember that.
Exactly.
So when I was looking you up, and I'm like, again, it's in the past, but when I looked at who you're married to, I'm like, oh, I remember her from a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
And then in your book, in the beginning of the book, I thought that was pretty cool. I liked your shout out to your brother, but when you wrote to Teresa, and then I went on your IMDb, I'm like, is that to Teresa? Is that Blind Date Teresa? The photo on IMDb? Teresa Gonzell?
Teresa Ganzel. Yeah,
That's amazing.
From the toy with.
Yeah, I interviewed Scotty Schwartz and we talked about her. And
oh yeah,
one of my favorite movies is Transylvania 65000.
Oh yeah, that's right.
It's such a quirky, weird movie. It's so good.
And a lot of people know her from. It was a very short-lived show, but it was quite good, called The Duck Factory.
I never saw it before. That was like early Jim Carrey.
Yeah, it was his first show. It was about people who work for an animation house. And she also used to do all the sketches with Johnny Carson on The Tonight Show.
Yeah.
But I was married to Adrienne Barbeau for many years. And then that ended. And 2 years after our marriage ended, Teresa had guest starred in that show, You've Got Hate Mail, where you read the scripts off the.
Oh, wow.
Laptops. And that's and that was when I thought back, wait a minute, we were set up on a blind date in 1979 that we never went on. And so now we made up for lost time 30 years later.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
That's cool the way that works out. Well, this has been awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you for taking the time. And one thing I thought is pretty cool, under yourself on IMDb, you were interviewed by Geraldo Rivera in 97. It says that on there. I don't know if that's true or not.
It is true. When my kids were born, Adrienne was 51 when she gave birth, and everybody on the radio thought, either it was either good for you or how dare you have a kid. It was horrible. So this was before all the tabloids used to, do all these kind of stories. But they started camping out at our house to try and get pictures and all that thing, and it was too creepy. So we did, I think we did Entertainment Tonight, and we did Geraldo, because he was one of my neighbors in New Jersey. We did those two shows to bring out the kids, introduce them to everybody so people would leave us alone.
They're real.
Yeah. So there you go.
That's awesome.
My kids are, my son William is a record producer.
What?
A musician, writer, and engineer. He just produced, he got his first gold album a month ago.
Wow.
There's a song called Freddy Krueger by a guy named Melly, and I had no idea who this person was. And he said, Dad, he's very famous. I said, he's famous for what? And he said, well, actually, he's on trial for killing a guy in Florida. I said, oh. I said, well, maybe you'll kill somebody else. You'll get a platinum record this time. And my son Walker is a streetwear designer.
Oh, wow.
And so they're both doing great.
Man, that ethic, that work ethic.
Yeah.
That was instilled upon you by the ex-Marine.
I thought it was for me. I actually said to William, I said, I take great pride in the fact that you've got the same work ethic as your father. He said, that's not from you, Dad. I said, well, he said, I played soccer for 10 years. We learned a whole work ethic of playing soccer. I was like, okay, all right. You can't give me that much.
Oh, man. Billy, this has been awesome, man. Thanks so much for taking the time.
Thank you.
So do you call it, one more thing, do you call it pork roll or Taylor ham?
Pork roll.
Yeah. And I love that you had Central Jersey in your book, because that's a real thing. Yeah. And for some reason, people don't say that.
I don't know when it stopped being a thing.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, it was always, I live in Central Jersey.
Always, yeah.
And
right in the armpit. Yeah. That's where we grew up. It was like pointing to where we live. Awesome. Well, have a good rest of your night. Thanks for taking the time. I'll probably put this out probably Monday. So I'll send you a link and everything. But I really appreciate it, man.
Thank you. Take care.
Thanks, man.
All right. Bye.
Bye. Wasn't Billy amazing? Wasn't it cool for anyone that's in Jersey? You found it out. A, he mentioned Central Jersey. And B, it's pork roll. He agrees it's called pork roll. And it was cool to be able to pick his brain because me and my buddy Tom are writing some scripts, some pilots, some screenplays. You know, we want to live the Hollywood dream too. But it was cool to be able to talk to him. So thank you, Billy. Get the book, get in the car, Jane. I'm going to make sure to put it in the episode notes so you can find the link on Amazon and all our other places. And as always, don't forget to review, rate, share our podcast. Write something nice. Tell me my hair looks good if you're watching this on video. If not, just say something nice. And don't forget to follow us on all social media at Sequels Only. And we have a website, sequelsonly.com. Good night.